St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. This program allows for the Team Unity Administration to address pertinent matters of national interest, and it gives the opportunity for persons to call in and air their concerns as well. We want to thank you, the viewing and listening audience, whether on island or abroad, for tuning in this evening. Tonight, the Honorable Prime Minister is joined by Superintendent of Police Cromwell Henry, Medical Chief of Staff Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, and National Disaster Coordinator Abdias Samuel. The topic this evening is curbing the spread. Now, before we get started, I'd like to give you the television hotline numbers so that you could call in later on in the program. The numbers are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, 1239 645 4500. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to give the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, the opportunity to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. I want to welcome you to Leadership Matters and thank you for holding on this evening. My fellow citizens and well-wishers, I am privileged to be communicating with you again tonight across multiple media and platforms. I deem it my sacred duty as the national leader and Prime Minister to take time to listen to you intently and attend to your needs. Tonight is another opportunity for you to have your questions answered and to seek out the facts. I look forward to hearing from you shortly. The last several weeks have been particularly challenging for our government and people as we were forced to adjust to the reality that COVID-19 had started a new fierce assault on our people and country. To date, COVID-19 has infected over 400 plus residents, and sadly, we lost 3 of our citizens in the battle. My prayers are with the families and loved ones of the deceased. My prayers are also with all the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. I pray with God's help, we will overcome the pandemic. The lockdown decision we took was not a decision taken lightly, but given the increase in COVID-19 cases, it was a decision that was necessary. Our priority throughout this pandemic has always been life first, protecting your life. Let us faithfully comply with the health protocols designed to keep us safe. Let us abide by the stay-at-home regulations, and let us comply with the curfew. If we do all these while availing ourselves of the opportunity to vaccinate, St. Kitts and Nevis, with God's grace, will emerge safer and stronger in the near future. And we can look forward to gradually opening up all sectors of the economy and society sometime in July. This will mean more people back at work, being able to earn income, pay their bills, and save for the inevitable rainy day. Your Team Unity government will not allow a situation to occur where COVID-19 runs uncontrolled and where more lives are put at risk. This is the reason we went to Parliament to provide a legislative tool of state of emergency powers to fight the battle against COVID-19. We are fighting hard for you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are fighting because we care and love you. These strong measures now are a small price to pay to save the lives of many. We must never take life for granted, And we must always be thankful to be alive. We must always be constant in prayer, reaching out to our God in supplication and fasting in good times and bad. In times of crisis, we need more prayers and fasting, not only by born-again Christians, but by all of society. For my part, I am guided and inspired by the words outlined in Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 17 to 18. Pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. This crisis has tested our faith, our discipline, our sense of gratitude to man and God. It has tested the innovativeness of our businessmen, vendors, farmers, and fishers, and it has tested our ability to consider others more than we consider ourselves. It is this message of selflessness which Reverend Canon Dwayne Cassius eloquently delivered at an NEOC briefing joined on the book of Philippians at chapter 2, verse 5. During this season of COVID-19, let us do much more acts of kindness than we would normally do. Simple things like looking out for the elderly, the sick, and shut-ins. Simple things like encouraging everyone with whom you interact to get vaccinated will go a long way. Speaking about vaccination, it is our most powerful tool we have to protect ourselves, our health, and that of others at home, at work, and at play. That is why I pause now to commend everyone who has gone out to be vaccinated. According to the Ministry of Health, as at the end of day today, 22,831 persons have taken their first dose. That represents 69.1% of the target population. Another 17,784 persons have taken their second dose. That represents 53.8% of the target population. So far, 40,615 doses have been administered to our people in St. Kitts and Nevis. We should all take pride that the percentage of persons with first and second doses here in St. Kitts and Nevis compares very favorably with that of the developed world or the advanced countries, for example, the United States of America, United Kingdom, Canada, etc., that have started their vaccination rollout long before we started ours way back in February 2021. God has been good to us in St. Kitts and Nevis. Indeed, the higher our vaccination rate, the easier for us to open up safely. But opening up safely requires us to do more. It requires us to continue implementing measures that kept us safe. As we learn to live with COVID-19, I must remind you to continue to wear your masks and to do so properly. Wash your hands regularly and avoid crowds to the extent you can. Change your behavior. We must do some things differently as we learn to live with COVID-19. I encourage our farmers and fishers, for example, to think innovatively about how they will adjust to life under COVID-19, and especially now we are under lockdown. Time becomes even more precious, and you have to use it well. You have to plan what you can do in the time available on days of absolute lockdown. What are the must-dos that can be done? What can be postponed to the longer days of limited operations, being 5 a.m. to 6 p.m., when you have some 13 hours available to you? Yes, I appreciate that it is challenging, But if you continue and we continue as if COVID-19 is not here in St. Kitts and Nevis, it may well find you, and it certainly will find all of us eventually. It may infect you, and it may cause your death. The lockdown is just for 2 weeks, 2 weeks of sacrifice for the medium term and long-term good. But some of the very lessons of the lockdown can be applied after the lockdown. I urge you then to make the adjustments to the way you do things. I need you, and your family needs you, and St. Kitts and Nevis needs you in perfect health. The way we shop, we have to see some changes in our behaviors. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we like to go to town to shop, and we like to visit many supermarkets. Consider this. Are you exposing yourself to long lines and crowds? Is it the wisest thing to do at this particular moment in time? Would it be better to go to one supermarket or shop, buy what you can get, and what you can't get, you learn how to improvise? For their part, our supermarkets and places of business must organize to serve their patrons more efficiently, including allowing their customers to buy online to reduce crowds and minimize the risk of transmission of COVID-19. We want to bring movement of people to a very low level, hence the stay-at-home rule. The virus can only move when people move. The COVID-19 virus, you are well aware, it writes its own rules. It comes when it wants, and it damages lives and livelihoods without discrimination. This is why we must all work together to fight it. I want to thank you for your patience during this time. Thank you for following the health protocols. Thank you for playing your role. The greatest role you can play in the fight against COVID-19 is to be vaccinated. Vaccinations are the way you can protect your life and the lives of your loved ones. If you want to see a day when COVID-19 is behind us, you can make that happen by being vaccinated. When you become vaccinated, you're sending a clear message. You're saying to your family and friends that you value them and you want to protect them. You're saying to your work colleagues that you want the economy to open up so everyone can get on with their jobs. You're sending a further message to your boss and workmates that you are contributing in making the workspace safe so that lives and livelihoods can thrive. When people are at work, they can do more for themselves. You can get vaccinated. When you get vaccinated, you're saying that you have put country above selves. Indeed, increased vaccination rates are our best part out of lockdown and out of the clutches of COVID-19. So please, don't hesitate. Do vaccinate. Tomorrow you have another opportunity again to turn out in your numbers. I want to commend the over 1,100 persons who went out today and get vaccinated. Tomorrow we can break today's record. I want finally to introduce the members of the panel tonight and again to welcome them to this edition of Leadership Matters. It is a special privilege and honor to be joined by Dr. Cameron Wilkerson, who has given yeoman service in this fight to keep our country and our people safe. I welcome him. He is no stranger to this panel. Equally, I welcome again Mr. Cromwell Henry, our Superintendent of Police, and Mr. Abdius Samuel, the chairperson of our National Task Force. Among us all, We have come to help, educate, inform, and more importantly, answer those questions on your mind. Thank you again, my fellow citizens and residents, for tuning in. May God continue to protect and bless you, and indeed keep our beloved country safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Harris, for your words of empathy and for reminding us of the importance of adhering to the health and safety protocols that are in place to assist in the fight against the deadly novel coronavirus that has killed more than 3 million people worldwide. I take this opportunity now to introduce our next presenter, the Medical Chief of Staff, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson.
Thank you. Curbing the spread of COVID-19 and the new norm. The last 18 months. It has been 18 months since we started our war against COVID-19. We are all battle-weary and wondering when it will be over. I want to implore you to hold firm and continue to fight using all the tools at your disposal to prevent transmission. As a federation, we have made great strides in our march towards our goal of achieving herd immunity, demonstrating along the way that we not only believe in science, but that we also believe in stewardship. And as stewards of our community, we must continue to protect the most vulnerable members among us. Community spread. Beginning on May 19th of this year, we saw a rise in cases due to community spread. Hiding in our bubble until the end of the pandemic was never a practical nor desired option in this fight. We knew and repeatedly warned the public that if we opened our borders, it was only a matter of time before we had a community outbreak. The work we did thus far in pushing for and having vaccinated a significant proportion of the population was in preparation for this particular battle. Community outbreak was inevitable and does not represent a failure of our efforts. Rather, it's a consequence that every country in this fight will face unless borders remain closed indefinitely. We understand the Lambda variant, which is more transmissible, although not associated with more severe disease, contributed to the increase in positive cases seen recently. It was through our proactive step in requesting the genomic sequencing that we got this information. Given its high transmissibility, we may not bring the infection rate down to zero immediately. Instead, with our aggressive ring-fencing contact tracing exercise, we have cast a wide web to identify all possible infected persons. By testing and removing those infected or exposed from the general population through isolation and quarantine, we are seeing the success of our efforts with a significant fall in our positive cases over the last week. The global community is waking up to the reality that COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon. There is growing optimism that it is possible to live with some sense of normalcy even as the virus continues to circulate in our communities. The aim is to minimize clusters, control spread, and not overwhelm our healthcare system as we move back to a sense of normalcy, and we are doing just that. The variants. There are now 4 variants of concern and 8 variants of interest in circulation in various countries across the globe. What this means is that the virus will continue to change and adapt so that it can find a permanent place in our world. Total eradication of COVID-19 may not be an immediate realistic goal, but we can destabilize it, we can tame it, we can significantly curb the spread, and in so doing, we can again open all sectors of our society safely. The vaccination program. Vaccination still remains our best tool in our fight to curb COVID-19 if we are going to be successful. We rolled out our vaccination program on February 22nd this year. The Prime Minister and I led by example and were the first in the Federation to be vaccinated. Since then, 22,831 adults have followed. We now have 69.1% of adults over the age of 18 vaccinated with one shot and 53.8% fully vaccinated. We are now within reach of a major milestone of having 70% of adults fully vaccinated, which will put us among the highest vaccinated nations in the world. This speaks to the success of our education and vaccination program. It also confirms what we have repeatedly said, that given the facts, in a crisis, our people will always do the right thing. Of significance also is that of the 41,600 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine we received, we have used 40,615, and we are on track to use every single dose tomorrow before the expiration date to protect our people. If your second shot is due tomorrow, make sure you go out and get it. Not a single drop of this precious commodity will be wasted. There is clear evidence that the vaccines are highly effective in reducing the risk of infection as well as transmission. There is clear evidence that even if you become infected, the vaccine will help prevent severe disease and death due to COVID-19. There is clear evidence that countries with a high vaccination rate tempered the virus and emerged to function with some sense of normalcy. Our people have shown us that they have followed the scientific evidence and listened to sound reasoning and judgment by coming out in their numbers to be vaccinated so that we can get back to a sense of normalcy. Testing. We have performed over 21,000 tests to date and have identified 443 positive cases, which included 4 today. We are beginning to see a sustained dip in the daily positive cases. Of those 443 positive cases, 177 have fully recovered, and the majority are doing well, with only 7 hospitalizations. Just in the last 24 hours, we recorded 50 recoveries, and that is significant. Sadly, we have had a total of 3 deaths thus far due to COVID-19, and we offer our deepest condolences to the affected families. We will continue to test all who need to be tested, as this is an important tool in the fight. We will continue our robust testing and screening exercise at our ports of entry to identify persons infected with the virus, even as we look to further reduce the quarantine period for the incoming traveler. We continue to rely on the gold standard PCR tests, but we are also monitoring the development of rapid antigen tests that are becoming more sensitive and specific as technology improves 18 months into this fight. Treatment. We continue to keep our medical specialists up to date on the standard of care for the COVID-19 patient. Just yesterday, our medical specialists were engaged in an international forum facilitated by pulmonologists and critical care specialists on clinical care management of the COVID-19 patient. We will continue to provide quality care for all of those affected. Personal responsibility. The action of one individual affects us all. Your choice not to get vaccinated, not to wear a mask in public, not to hand sanitize or social distance can have far-reaching consequences for us all. Our collective discipline and adherence to COVID-19 appropriate behavior are critical to our success in this fight. The virus we are fighting has inflicted a serious death toll and economic destruction across the globe, and we are not immune here. We now know its weaknesses and must act with a fierce urgency to defeat it. It is helpless when collectively we take matters in our hands by hand sanitizing them to destroy it. The virus cannot move without our help. We can therefore deny it a mode of transportation if we avoid crowds and practice social distancing, leaving it dead in its tracks. We must also continue to wear a mask covering our nose and mouth to deny its entry into our respiratory tract. If all who can be vaccinated do so, we will provide protection not just for ourselves, but to those who cannot be vaccinated, like our children, our pregnant mothers, and the very old and frail. We need to remain respectful and caring to one another recognizing that it's the virus that is the enemy and not you or I. We need to forget our differences and unite with a common purpose in this time of national crisis to defeat the virus and make our beloved federation safe and COVID-free. The lockdown. The lockdown is the nuclear option to contain the wave of infection that we are currently experiencing, as by stopping us from moving, we halt the movement of the virus. In addition to containing the virus, it will have negative social, psychological, and economic impacts. This is the time for us to be our brothers and sisters' keeper, and for all of society to do their part so that we can all get through the next 2 weeks together, more protected, more informed, and healthier, so that we can continue the fight against COVID-19. The new normal. With vaccination, testing, treatment, and collective social responsibility, many countries, including our own, can return to function in a new normal. What may the new normal involve? What I will outline is not a government policy, but elements of what different countries may adopt as we all move forward to reopening in the new normal. The new norm may require that, 1, an infected person isolate and recover at home instead of being placed in a government quarantine facility, because with vaccination, the symptoms will be mostly mild, and with others in the household protected through vaccination, the risk of transmission will be low. 2, with a significant proportion of the population vaccinated and with the adoption of COVID-19 appropriate behavior, the chance of the virus spreading will be significantly decreased. The need for massive contact tracing and quarantining of people each time we discover a new case will also decrease. If a positive case is confirmed, the person can be isolated without any significant disruption of the various sectors of society. 3, as vaccines become more available globally later in the year, we may get access to other vaccines to immunize our 12 to 18-year-olds, pushing our threshold of population immunity and protection even higher. This will give us the ability to absorb more risk as we open up. We will, however, continue to use the best vaccine available to us, which is the one we have now. 4, rather than focusing on COVID-19 daily positive numbers, we will need to focus on outcomes. How many are very sick? How many are hospitalized? How many have recovered? And ensuring that our healthcare system is not overwhelmed. If we are going to learn to live with COVID, we must understand that this may mean no zero COVID. 5, we will see review of entry protocols from the vaccinated travelers with the aim to have a significant reduction in the quarantine periods until countries get to a point where the vaccinated traveler goes straight home. This will help to bring back tourism industries and much needed economic activity across the Caribbean. 6, children of the vaccinated traveler may be able to move under the umbrella of their vaccinated parents or guardians and go home with them with guidance. 7, proof of COVID-19 vaccination may be required for regional and international travel. 8, mass events may initially only be held safely with vaccinated adults, otherwise we will see a resurgence of the vaccine. 9, we will see the continued encouragement of every essential worker to get vaccinated so that our education, tourism, health, security, and business sectors continue to function uninterruptedly in the new norm with COVID-19. And lastly, 10, we will see a time when the vaccine will be mandated to enter colleges or even a requirement to apply for a job in the public or private sector. The new norm will have at its core 2 new elements, and they are the vaccination and a change in behavior. Finally, we must all understand that the lockdown is a circuit breaker pulled to contain overwhelming viral spread. Avoiding future lockdowns as we enter the new norm will only be possible if everyone shoulders his or her responsibility and abides by the COVID-19 appropriate behavior, and all who can be vaccinated do so that we can curb the spread of COVID-19 and move forward. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson, for that update. And despite the unfortunate news that 3 persons lost their lives because of the virus, We celebrate the small wins. 50 persons have fully recovered as of today. We move now to our next presenter, that is Superintendent of Police, Cromwell Henry.
Thank you very much, Shaira, and a pleasant good night to all listening this broadcast via whatever means. Of course, it is always my pleasure to sit on these programs to educate or to speak to you, the public, on matters relative to the law and how it aids the overall strategy to keep us safe during this pandemic. We are currently under a state of emergency, which was extended yesterday by Parliament until December 31st. Let me first explain what is a state of emergency. It is a tool that is used by governments to give themselves additional powers to address a calamity that has the potential to overwhelm the resources of the state. Such calamities include natural disasters, acts of external aggression against the state, internal unrest or public disorder, health pandemics, etc. We are currently in a health pandemic battling COVID-19, hence the reason for this current state of emergency. State of emergencies temporarily suspend some basic individual rights so that authorities can bring the situation under control quicker. So, for example, the curfews, restrictions of movement, closure of businesses, restrictions on social activities are some of the basic rights that you give up to allow us to better manage the crisis. We are aware that the virus needs people to move. So as long as we are moving, the virus will move with us, and it will spread from person to person. When you stay at home and follow the protocols, you are helping us to manage the crisis and shorten the length of time that we remain under these conditions. The actions of the security forces are guided by the Emergency Powers Regulation, SRO 25 of 2021, which has provisions geared towards controlling and preventing the spread of the virus. The two main pillars of the regulation are stay at home and follow the protocols if you must go out. However, you should only go out if you have to access some essential service, such as food, financial service, or medical care. Or if you are categorized as an essential worker. While you are out, you must of course wear your mask, maintain a physical distance of 6 feet from others, and sanitize your hands regularly. The police have been very busy enforcing the restrictions under the regulations. To date, we have issued over 200 tickets, well, actually it's 282 tickets to persons for failing to wear the mask in public and for hosting or attending social events that were not authorized. 33 persons have been arrested so far for breaching the nightly curfew. Our online curfew e-pass portal has been kept busy, very busy, with applications for passes to be out during the curfew or limited operation periods. Over the last 3 days, we have received almost 600 applications and over 2,400 applications over the last month. We urge you to be more disciplined and resist the urge to apply for a pass to go out, if you can avoid it. Remember, the reason for the restrictions is to prevent the spread of the virus, and the more you move, the more the virus moves with you. Before I close, I just want to make a few announcements that may inform our discussion later. Presently, all street vendors, particularly in the town of Bastille, has been prohibited. All street vending, particularly in the town of Bastia, has been prohibited, and vendors are moved to the public market, where measures are in place for the safety and security of the vendors and their customers. We would like to see this continue going forward. Therefore, we are asking persons who have tents, vehicles, or other structures on the streets and sidewalks in Bastia to have them removed as soon as possible, in any case by the 9th of July. This will include food trucks that are scattered around the streets of Bastia. The current regulations do not provide for the opening of restaurants on limited operation days, but rather give the Commissioner of Police a discretion to permit them to operate. The Commissioner has already received several of such applications, and I'm therefore pleased to inform you that the Commissioner has approved the opening of restaurants on limited operation days between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. for takeaway or delivery orders only. No in-dining will be permitted. With regards to the licensing of vehicles ending with 6 and 7, we've had a few questions on this. The licensing authority has approved the waiving of the vehicle inspection for these vehicles. Paving the way for the vehicles to be licensed without such inspection certificates. Persons wishing to license your vehicle during the 24-hour lockdown periods, you may do so via the Inland Revenues Department website at www.sknird.com. We have also made provisions for farmers during the 24-hour curfew days to attend their food farms or their livestock during the periods of 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. daily. So during the period of 24-hour curfew, farmers, that is all farmers, food crops and livestock farmers, you may visit your farm between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. and between the hours of 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. And on limited operation days, all farmers and fishers are permitted to operate between the hours of 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. However, we ask that you observe all the protocols, wear your mask when you are out or in the company of others, and maintain a physical distance of 6 feet. Earlier, I indicated that restaurants may be open on limited operation days for takeout or delivery service only. I want to emphasize here that bars are not permitted to operate. Regulation 14 provides all retail liquor licenses are suspended once a period of emergency has been declared. Regulation 11 restricts all social activities and prohibits persons from visiting or attending any bar or rum shop. So we ask that bar owners, you keep your bars closed and do not allow the type of congregation of persons at these establishments. I will stop here for now and be prepared to discuss the issues that I've raised further during the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Cromwell Henry, for that update. And we'll now get our opening remarks from National Disaster Coordinator Abdias Samuel.
Thank you very much, Shaida, and a pleasant good night to the general public and all those who are listening via various means. I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for giving us the opportunity to be here with him and this panel to discuss our national response to the crisis that we are presently facing. Tonight, I wish to update the public on our comprehensive national response to the COVID-19 pandemic and our preparation for the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. During this crucial and critical period in which we face a dual hazard environment. Before I do so, please allow me to recognize the Mitigation Council chairs, in that of the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron Jr., and the co-chair, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, and also the members and staff of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and my colleagues on the National COVID-19 Task Force. The 2021 Atlantic hurricane season began on the 1st of June, with the season being initially classified as an above-average season with 13 to 20 named storms, 6 to 10 classified as potential hurricanes with wind upwards of 75 miles per hour, and 3 to 5 major hurricane outlined. Now, some of you who may be watching the National Hurricane Center's posting on Facebook or on the website would have noticed that we have 2 systems in the Atlantic presently. And during this lockdown, we have been receiving a lot of calls and concerns. Let me just advise you. 1, Invest 95, which is a tropical wave that is 650 miles east of the Lesser Antilles, is presently traveling at 20 to 25 miles per hour, which is likely to reach the Lesser Antilles by Wednesday night. Invest 95 could bring heavy rainfall to parts of the Lesser Antilles within the next few days. However, please note that the chance of this forming into a storm is 20 to 30%. What does that mean for us? There could be minimal impact to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, as it will be passing hopefully south of us. However, let me just caution that weather is dynamic and things may change from hour to hour. The second system, identified as Invest 97, is a tropical wave located 900 miles southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands, and it continues to show signs of organization. However, the system may develop within the next few days as it travels west-northwest at 20 miles per hour, so it's traveling much slower. And the chance for formation, it's approximately 20 to 40% within the next 5 days. Mr. Elmer Burke, Senior Met Officer, would have, at the St. Kitts Met Office, would have made a presentation to the National COVID-19 Task Force on the present weather condition in the Atlantic. And in this regard, the National COVID-19 Task Force will be making some recommendations to the Cabinet to potentially allow certain businesses to open during the days of limited operations, so that persons can procure necessary materials to show their homes and surrounding if such a threat arises. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now shift to the purpose of the lockdown and the restrictions implemented by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let us take a look at the corridor of containment. On the 1st of May, the Honorable Prime Minister added an extra layer of protection by announcing that every passenger entering the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis must be fully vaccinated. Allow me to share some figures with you to show you that this measure is one of the measures that has strengthened our corridor of containment. Case in point, to date, from the opening of our borders on the 31st of October to the 27th of June 2021, we have had 9,423 persons arrive in our shores. That includes nationals, expatriates, and also visitors. 8,868 on St. Kitts, 555 on Nevis. Equally so, departures for the same said period on St. Kitts, we would have had 8,200 persons depart St. Kitts, 635 depart Nevis, for a total of 8,835 persons. From the 1st to the 31st of May 2021, since the announcement, we have not seen any significant change in the passengers' arrival. For example, we saw 553 arrivals, which kept this as the normal, and we saw 591 arrivals. We continue to reduce the risk of associated with the borders being open. The travel advisories against Brazil, United Kingdom, India, and South Africa are one of the measures that has helped strengthen our corridor of containment. Let us now look at what is being done by the quarantine sites and vacation in place. Let me take this opportunity to thank the general managers, owners, and corporate partners from the hotel sector. In particular, the Park Hyatt, Mr. Mark Schneider, who has taken the bold step of having his staff living in the hotel until we are over this particular lockdown. Equally so, Mr. Darren Thompson and his team at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel, Ms. Anna McNutt and her team at the St. Kitts Marriott Hotel, Ms. Mara Gums and COI. And we have to thank COI for the efforts that they are doing by honoring the commitments to the OTI Hotel by providing nationals and residents with affordable prices for them to be able to quarantine. Equally so, we have Ms. Claudia Sanchez from St. Kitts Marriott Vacation Club, who has been doing an excellent job in ensuring that the St. Kitts tourism product maintains its value. We also have Ocean's Edge, Ms. Denise Wilson, who also has a team in-house. Sergeant Sophia Henry, who manages the OTI on behalf of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And Nevis, we also want to thank the Four Seasons Resort, Ms. Yvette Henry Thomas, who continues to provide support even though she's in Nevis. And equally so, Ms. Camilla Stahl of the Paradise Beach Resort. Ladies and gentlemen, it's critically important that we highlight the commitment and the partnership and corporate responsibility being displayed by these particular business places. I want to bring to your attention what we have been doing in terms of the social assistance program being rolled out by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. To date, I want to provide some figures. As of the 20th of June, there were 1,890 persons that have benefited from care packages, that's food care packages. 302 households has benefited, and these households are households of persons who were in quarantine or isolation. 169 persons benefited from who are classified under the reduced income or unemployment classification. Today alone, 63 food care packages were delivered. 200 hot meals were delivered on Sunday to various families around the island. The Ministry of Social Services wishes to extend profound gratitude to the citizens, community groups, churches, NGOs, public and private sector that have contributed to the social service assistance program. Allow me to just list a few: the Moravian Church, the Rotary Club of St. Kitts, Best Buy, Odi Brisbane and Sons, Mickey's Hope, who gave 87 bags and food items, Berry Egg Farm donated eggs, Mr. Politics, as a citizen, gave $400 of his hard-earned money during this critical time. I also want to acknowledge a farmer, Ras Tubal, from Phillips's, who would have given a bag of onion. The St. Kitts Backyard Association and the Time for Us has provided toiletries. It is very important that we come on board. Persons seeking assistance from the social assistance program, please contact the following numbers: 662-5993, 662-5539, and this number is WhatsAppable, and also 662-7710, 662-6473. One of the greatest needs expressed by the Ministry of Social Services and Gender Affairs is cold storage. So if you have cold storage, if you have a deep freezer in which you can assist the social services, we welcome your assistance. And this is for non-perishable items. We request non-perishable items or dry goods, cloth bags or reusable shopping bags, and small plastic bags for flour and sugar. In addition to food care packages, Social Security has indicated as part of our national response that they will be assisting persons with food vouchers for the sum of $200. 1,000 vouchers will be issued on St. Kitts and 250 on Nevis. The National Emergency Management Agency district volunteers have been collecting the information of vulnerable persons or persons affected or impacted by the lockdown thus far. They have been walking through the communities collecting this information. Please contact the district managers and NEMO, and the NEMO to register for this assistance. Please visit the NEMO website, or as you can see on the screen, call or contact one of the district managers or volunteers. Persons desirous of assisting with the contribution of these goods, please contact social services or deliver the non-perishable food packages to the basement of the Antioch Church at Limekiln, Bastille. As part of our national response as well, because it's not just about the virus, it's not just about the impact on our social or economic, it's a general response. We continue to see all of government's approach, all of society approach. In this regard, I want to inform the general public that the Labor Department continues to support this national response by continuing to work assiduously to fulfill the claims made by persons who are due severance payment. In this regard, the Labor Commissioner has advised us that $36.6 million have been paid out in claims. 2,295 claims have been filed in 2020. To date, 2,322 claims against 2,429 claims were received. The total number of claims, therefore, that have been paid out to date is 2,295. That means that only 29 claims are awaiting payment. I want to commend the work and commitment by the officers in the Labor Department, as this is part and parcel of the response to this particular crisis. Today, we would have been engaged by the Ministry of Education as I ask of you, citizens, to pray for our students who are undertaking exams. The Ministry of Education continues its partnership with the National COVID-19 Task Force to ensure that we create a safe and conducive environment for the success of our students. Today, Mr. Vincent Hodge would have indicated the challenges and successes of the students performing these exams during this time of crisis. We must report to you that we are satisfied that everything is going satisfactory. We were prepared for the first port of call by Celebrity Millennium and also Odyssey, the Odyssey cruise ships. These cruise ships were scheduled to come to St. Kitts and Nevis. Regrettably, the outbreak happened, and this has delayed the arrival of these ships. I want to assure our tourism sector workers that are dependent on these sectors that their livelihoods are not forgotten. We are working assiduously to ensure that we develop robust protocols to ensure that you have a safe working environment once these ships arrive. We have also been engaged by the social services today at our National COVID-19 Task Force meetings. We were also engaged by Mr. Elmer Burke. We were also engaged by the Nevis Culturama Committee, because we are hoping that we can restore the country to its normalcy. Let me just say in ending that we will be building resilience. We will build back stronger. We will build back better, and we will become a resilient nation. With that said, we would await your questions so that we can engage you and hopefully answer them appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, National Disaster Coordinator Abdias Samuel, for your updates. We have now come to the segment of the program where we let you know, the viewing and listening public, that the lines are open. You are free to call in and air your concerns or ask your questions. I'll remind you of the numbers. They are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, 1-239-645-4500. You can also send your questions on WhatsApp at 661-5683. I want to also just add there really quickly, thank you to my producers for reminding me that I did not introduce myself earlier. I am Shaira Flanders, your host this evening, and if you're just tuning in, this is Leadership Matters. Do we have a caller? Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. First, I want to thank the Prime Minister and his team, his government, and the people for the vaccination and the health department and everything, and also his government. Mr. Prime Minister, I want to ask you a simple question. During you going up in the House of Assembly, you don't have what they call a breathalyzer test there? Because yesterday it seems like some people was up there were drinking something when the liquor store them was supposed to be closed. So I hope that the superintendent look into that. And I want to say something to you again, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, they have a radio station that come on every day, and the topic is the government, I think it's, and the good work that you're all doing. Well, one of the hosts talking about his mother born here. So I would like you to go to the Attorney General and let the Attorney General describe the laws to you. His mother only born here if he want to run for election. But while your mother born here, you can't disturb the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and dignitary in government and trying to disgrace them, because he only disgracing himself. You understand me? So I would like the Attorney General to visit that law for you and tell you what the law. The only how the law was put there because of one of them brother, and he was running for government, but he never had nobody born here. But the law was put in a way one of them had to born here. But that is only for that. Not a man who is 30-something years old, 50-something years old, and talking about his mother born here. He have to bear his own responsibility. That's why you see a lot of them yesterday were criticizing the state of emergency, because one don't think he going back to England, you know. The place he thing up there. So, Prime Minister, continue, and you people around you, just continue to do the best all you could for the Federation, and everything will be all right with you. Who God bless, no man curse. Who God put together, no man put asunder. And continue your good work, you and your teams. God.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Prime Minister Harris, would you like to address, or we'll just take another? Okay, we have some more questions, and I would like to remind the callers to try to keep it brief so that we can get as many questions in as possible. Remember, tonight's topic is focusing on curbing the spread of the novel coronavirus. We'll take another call.
Hello?
Is there another call? Good evening, caller. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello? Yeah, I'm on?
Hi, yes, you're on. We're expecting you to ask your question.
Sure. Well, let me start off by saying welcome to another Leadership Matters. This is Buck Garrett, and Buck, yeah, I always done it. Let me start off with Mr. Wilkinson, because lately he's been having some real attack. And I'm wondering how is he coping when persons attacking his professionalism as a doctor. You know, there's too many rumors, you know, going on about him. And since this pandemic started, he's been there more than 24 hours, making sure that he provides us with information. And when persons attack him, I'm wondering if there's any effect on him moving forward. And we go on. Well, as usual, I'm back again with the severance pay. So I'm wondering if can I get an update on the severance to date, right? How much was paid out, and also what
is the outstanding from last year. Moving on, can you indicate how far the country is going, right? And in terms of a stimulus, because persons are not working, and persons haven't been working since last year. So I know on the last Leadership Matters, I did ask about the stimulus, and I think I stand to be corrected that our Prime Minister said that there might have been some negotiation or thinking about it. So can he shed some light, and if any stimulus is coming for those persons who are not working or maybe in quarantine? We continue. Do you have a date when we will open in a safe way? Because I'm seeing the numbers are dropping, and which mean that the vaccine are working, and which mean that the government is doing what they're supposed to do to keep us safe. So I ask again, do you have a date when we will open in a safe way? What is your prediction for this year in terms of the economy and growing? That's a follow-up question to the first one I just asked. Let me say congrats to the relocation of the vendors off of the street. Better safe than never. I mean, there are persons who was complaining that they cannot walk in the street. So now that the government have relocated them to the public market, I'm wondering how it is going. See our Prime Minister have visited the market on more than one occasion, and that's very good of him. It means that he's buying local, and he's also looking at the transition from off the street into the public market that is there for those vendors. How is the curfew going? Are the people behaving themselves? Are they adjusting to this new curfew versus this time around to last year? And lastly, I see Mr. Abdel Samuel mentioned about places open. I'm hoping that he mean the hard way, because we have, let's say, bad weather, some weather passing our way. So I'm wondering if the hardware is going to be open, at what time or what limit, right, so persons can get the material to do a little patching up. Have a good night. This is Bucky Garrett and Bucky Garrett. Pierre Maris, thank you for continuing to keeping us safe. You are getting some licks, but you're not moving fast. You're taking your time, as you see. There's a wash. You take your time. You lock down partially. You give persons chance to go and shop. So they have Thursday and Friday to shop, which means that you're taking your time. You're giving us a break. You're not locking us down totally for the 2 weeks. So these are techniques and strategies that you're using.
Thank you so much for calling and sharing your questions, but we have quite a number of questions to answer this evening, so we're going to have to take another caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Prime Minister, good night, and good night to the doctor and everyone here. I have a question here. I have a question because listening to some people, this thing what happened to the hotel with the young lady, they're saying, look, the government has to take full responsibility for it. So I have a question to ask. If the lady is a doctor or nurse, or if she was working with the CMO, helping with the COVID testing, because the reason why I asked the question, I was in quarantine, and when the workers them come to clean the room, they tell you have to come outside. I asked the lady why she tell me that's the rule. And the closest I get to one of them, the closest I get to somebody is when the nurses them come take the test. Right? So I don't know, the young lady never wearing mask. I don't know how she get too close to this gentleman to pick up that, and then they blaming the government. You understand? That is my question tonight. Is either yes or no. Okay.
All right. Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for asking your questions. We'll take another call. Is there another call?
No.
Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, hello, good night. Good night to the general public. Good night to the panel. Prime Minister, this granny. I had a few questions, but unfortunately somebody don't ask them. But I just want to thank, Dr. Wilkerson, Abdel Samuel, Ms. Lazi in there, for the very wonderful work you all doing and the contact tracing to see that we numbers them reach down. And to tell all the honest God truth, I hope they stay down. And I'm just begging everybody out there in the general public to please go and vaccinate. This is what's going to help the country to move forward. Prime Minister, I hope you see the man there, Henry, so he's doing a wonderful and great job, right? At times I ask him, you don't get sleep, right? And I notice that nobody up there said thanks to the police force who out there working hard, and the nurses them. Prime Minister, I hope you find it in your heart to give them a little extra thing in the pocket, because they don't work hard. See the health centers open. I see the health center full up Monkey Hill. And people, please don't forget that the health center opening up here tomorrow from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Come vaccinate. Let me get this thing straight. Prime Minister, you and your team, you are doing a wonderful job. The people then who ain't understand when you say fast and pray is who don't go church. Are you good night? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, caller. Thank you very much for that. Do we have another caller? We'll take this call if there is another caller. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening.
Ms. Flanders. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister and the team. Thanks for spending another Tuesday night with us. Quickie, you mentioned before that we should do prayers and fasting during this period, this lockdown period. There's a bishop from the New Testament Church of God, I think it was, who came on a Straight Talk some nights ago with Patches, and he mentioned that he'd like to have a day of prayer. I think that's a wonderful thing to complement what you said. But this would not be a day of prayer in church. It would be a day of prayer on the radio stations, the government stations plus the private stations, and different preachers from different denominations, different churches would come on throughout the day and say a prayer for the nation. I don't think that could be considered during the lockdown days, not the free days, but during the next so many days next week from Saturday down to Thursday next week, I think it is. That's one. And somebody almost stole my thunder a while ago. When the economy catches itself again, and I hope that it does so sooner rather than later, before we go back to paying civil servants double salaries, could some special compensation be given to all those hard-working persons who have been fighting the COVID over the last 18 months? The community checkers, the persons who do the tracing, the nurses in the hospital, the health centers, the doctors who are involved, everybody. Please give them some kind of financial recognition. I would like to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions, caller. Do we have another call? We have another call. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night.
Good night.
I'm calling to congratulate the panel there. You have to give them some credit. All those who are involved in keeping down the COVID, I commend you. And another thing again, our people are too careless. Because even though the Prime Minister said we are on a lockdown, people still walking along the street. And I think the police them does have a lot of work to do, But I just want them to catch them, and anywhere how you all catch them, just give them a heavy penalty. When they're done, they're talking about, oh, they're not working. If they're not working, why don't stay home? I commend y'all. And another thing again, those nurses and so, them they need a good salary because they're doing a good job. All those who giving the vaccination, they're very tired. And the police up there and the other guy down to the bottom there, and Mr. Cameron Wilkerson and Mrs. Laws. Y'all doing a good job. Very good job. Prime Minister, Mr. Harris, I commend you. I feel like if I don't have to come out outside, I'll be so happy. I think the lockdown should be a little bit longer, but the only thing about it, people want something to eat. And they're going to be more talking about they're hungry and nothing is there. But they're the same one who is carrying the virus all over the place.
Caller, are you still there? Okay, it seems that call was disconnected. We'll take another call. Do we have another caller?
Yeah, hello, good night.
Hi, good night.
Good night to the panelists. This question is to the Prime Minister, or Mr. Common Henry. The Defense Force is having a serious problem. And the Defense Force is wondering when they're going to get the ID to prove to the police the Defense Force. Because the Defense Force is getting stopped, because they have to show the ID. And they don't have no proof, just as they just have on a uniform to prove that there is a part of the Defense Force. So I was just asking the Prime Minister how soon the Defense Force can get an ID to identify themselves as a Defense Force soldier, because they do not have nothing to prove that they're the Defense Force soldier. And we know that we have what we call a state of emergency. And state of emergency command in the Defense Force, the Governor General. And the Defense Force is a part of the command of the Governor General, and they don't have anything like an ID to protect them, to prove, right, that there is a part of the Defense Force. And they're wondering when they can get the ID, because many times police is stopping them and want them to show ID when they don't have any ID. And that is creating a problem. The other question I want to ask to Mr. Samuel, number 47 case, right, came in from Argentina. That person was in what we call a vacation quarantine, right? Quarantine vacation. How that come about when other people who came into the country have to be in quarantine? So how is it that person, because Dr. Law said they have something in place where you call vacation quarantine, and that person was in vacation quarantine, could have moved about, and that person is the one who give number 46, because that person didn't lock down totally. So we want to know how the vacation quarantine come about. I'll listen off here.
Thank you so much for your question. Caller, we'll take one more question. Do we have another caller? Caller, you're on the air. Good night. Hi, we can hear you. Ask your question, please.
Kudos to the team leading the Prime Minister. And I tuned in late, and there was a part that I missed in Henry's presentation about the restaurants and the state of emergency. Each day I look at the briefing, I can see the tiredness on the faces of Dr. Wilkinson, Albiers, the Prime Minister, Minister Phipps, Henry. Guys, you are doing an awesome job. And I want you to take this in mind every time you go on the national radio and television. Though he slay me, God has your back. Not to worry. You guys are leaving your families every day just to make sure that I don't want to talk about myself. Myself and my family is in safe hands. I must express sincere gratitude and thanks every time to you guys, because Dr. Wilkinson, as I look at you on the television, I saw you a couple of months ago, your hair have gone even grayer. But I know you are doing country above self, Albiers. I know you very young, but God, Albiers, you've gotten old in such a short time, Mr. Prime Minister. I see it on your face. Cromwell, I hear it in the voices of Dr. Laws, the AG. But I want to say congratulations to you guys, and keep up the good work. This is coming from Charlene Warner in Sandy Point. Keep it up. God will applaud you. He's able, and he's giving you the strength, the knowledge, the courage, and the wisdom to partake and to help us to this COVID. All right? I thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, caller. Prime Minister Harris, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the callers who have put questions before us and made some helpful suggestions on the matter raised with respect to the severance payment. That data was given in Parliament. $36 million have already been paid out. $36.6 million have been paid out by the federal government to 2,295 persons. 2,295 persons have been paid $36.6 million. There is a small number, about 20 claims that are left over from 2020, and 29 are awaiting payment. That data was just given by Abdias. The total number of claims for severance as at the 25th June is 2,429. So we have substantially disposed of or paid out all of the claims except for a small number, less than 30. This is a remarkable job for which we must commend the Labour Department, the Ministry of Finance, for such a fine job. Never before has so many claims been processed by the Labour Department. The last time we had a massive severance program was in 2005, there about 2006, when the sugar industry was closed. And during that period of time, 2005, 2006, for an industry that had well over 2,000 plus persons, indeed at one point the sugar industry employed over 5,000 persons. In 2005, 2006, a mere 968 persons benefited from severance of those who had been in the sugar industry. Around 2015, 2016, my government began to act on this matter, and we paid just around 2,000 persons their short payments due them from the closure of the sugar industry. So a very good effort by the Labour Department, and I want to commend those who have done that very good job. In terms of a date for the opening of the economy, I would say that we wait until the 14-day period is ended, and at that particular juncture, I will make a statement to the country. How do we go forward? So, in a matter of days, we will get an understanding where we are at. Prediction in terms of the economy has been stabilized, and the dramatic fall-off we witnessed in 2020 has been contained. We are already aware, for example, that the tourism industry has been open. The figures are still modest, yet we are moving in the right direction, and we are anticipating that as we move into fall, we are going to see even greater numbers. Mr. Abdia spoke to the potential for the return of the cruise ship in a safe way. That development, again, will push us in the right direction. The IMF has been here. They have done an evaluation of the economy so far. They are satisfied that the worst is behind us, and they anticipate that St. Kitts and Nevis will go very strongly next year. We are anticipating that at the end of the year, we certainly would see a stabilization and a growth in our economy. And so we remain optimistic. We have had some challenges with the fallout of COVID-19, a consequence of which we have had to do a number of lockdowns, and of course, those will have some consequences for the level of economic activity. But we are now set to go. In terms of agriculture, that has been growing significantly this year compared to last year. The fisheries production, that has increased significantly by double digit when we compare last year's output to this year's output. We are moving in the right direction. Manufacturing, basically we've had about 90+% of all employees back to work, and this is moving again in the right direction. Manufacturing exports. Exports are greater this year so far than they were last year. So on almost all the drivers of economic growth, tourism, construction, manufacturing, we are seeing positive developments. And that is why we know that the strong negative winds of last year, they are easing up. And by the end of the year, we certainly would be in a stronger and safer place. For the following year, 2022, the predictions are for even more exciting times. What we need to do is to continue to put our best foot forward, to continue to comply with the COVID-19 protocols, so that there will not be any necessity for us to have to close down the economy again. Each of us has to do the right thing. The other question raised was in relation to the National Day of Prayer. Jean Howell raised this. I'm happy to report, I think there was a news release, a news item today or yesterday, which indicated that the National Day of Prayer will be held on Saturday the 3rd of July. That is my recollection of that item. That day is being organized as a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, headed by the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, the Christian Council, and the Evangelical Association. The program will be shortly be made available. This particular day of prayer should have been held on the 17th, but because of developments to with the lockdown, it has been deferred, postponed to now July 3rd. What this means in terms of the format, we will know more when further details are made available. We are serious about the National Day of Prayer, as we are serious about ensuring that we do all that we can to keep St. Kitts and Nevis moving in the right direction. The matter of salary revision, that of course we must take in stride. We should at this point ensure that we encourage and we motivate all, beyond the incentive of money, because at this particular juncture, we know that things are tight. What we need is for the depth of the patriotism to come to the fore, and everyone puts out the best foot forward to get our country back to the place where it was among the best in terms of its fiscal and economic performance. Once we get there, all due rewards will come in due course. Indeed, only in 2020 it was that we did a recalibration of the salaries for a large number of nurses in St. Kitts and Nevis. So there have been significant adjustments, and those, of course, will come for all categories of workers in St. Kitts and Nevis. I agree a fantastic job has been done, and we have to provide some incentive to those who have worked so exceptionally well. I'm also mindful that once you act on behalf of one, there is a demand by all to be treated in like manner. And so these are some of the issues that we have to confront, and therefore we understand that we have to make a comprehensive response with respect to wages and salaries. The matter of the Defense Force and their ID is a matter which I will have to speak to the commander of the Defense Force. I will be very surprised if he does not have a mechanism that allows for IDs, because IDs are now so readily available. But that matter, I do not have the details. I'll speak to the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Osmond Petty, and Commander Anthony Comrie with regard to that matter of the IDs. I'm sure, being fraternal colleagues, the police by and large would know most of the Defense Force officers in our country. It's against the law for anyone who not being a security officer, that is a police officer, a member of the Defense Force, to appropriate their uniform. And so where there is need for greater care and attention, those actions will of necessity followed. I want to thank Charlene Warner, my good friend from Sandy Point, Rock, and all others for their words of commendation. And please rest assured that we continue to remain strong in the face of criticism. I am assured that the majority of the people in St. Kitts and Nevis are with the government in its strategy to keep the country safe. I am assured that the majority of people in St. Kitts and Nevis are convinced that the vaccination, the vaccines, is the best route out of COVID-19. Indeed, the statistics reveal that in an overwhelming way, we are now close to having 70% of the adult population taking their first shot. When you compare the number of persons who have been fully vaccinated, you see we are in the big league. We are in the league which compares with some of the most powerful countries. The United States of America, which started early in December, Canada, and countries like Germany and France, who long before we ever dreamed of talking about vaccines and getting vaccines, were well on the road. St. Kitts and Nevis has been a model of a best managed small island state, and we continue to do that. We see that reflected in our statistics, the number of tests that are being conducted, the effectiveness of our contact tracing, and every indicator measurable we have done exceptionally well. So we would always wish that we had 0 deaths. But look within the region, and you see again that we are among the best performers in terms of our ability to keep things going, prevent the overwhelming of our health sector, and indeed to save lives. In the indicator of vaccination, we are well ahead of the rest. And so we continue to press on with our strategy, a life-first strategy, making the delicate judgment call for life in the context of preserving persons' life so that they can focus on their livelihoods.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, for answering those questions. We had a few questions as well. Speaking of criticism, Dr. Wilkinson, if no one asked you how you were doing, Bucky is quite interested in finding out how you are coping.
What I want to say is, if it were that they were criticizing the message, I would be more concerned. But I am happy that the majority of the country, they have been listening. As you heard, we have 69.1% of the adults who came forward and got vaccinated, and very soon we'll have 70%. And so I just want to tell Bucky that I fly at a different altitude where I don't listen to naysayers and criticisms, etc. My eyes are quite clear with where I'm heading. My focus is on the entire country, whether they are for me or against me, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that everyone is safe. And that's where I focus on. And so I'm very happy man. I've been a happy man all of my life. And so those criticisms. They don't bother me.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. And we have a question here. Are people behaving during curfew? And I believe, Superintendent, you'll be able to answer that.
Yes. From the numbers we've seen for the last month, only 33 persons we've had to take in custody. And that's a very low number compared to last year when we first had curfews. So it means that persons are adhering. At 6 o'clock or 5:45, you see people are hurrying to get off the road. We do not encourage that. We prefer persons to begin to head home early and not to begin to rush at 5:45. You tend to increase your risk when you do that. But generally, yes, we see, for the most part, persons are complying with the nightly curfews.
Mention something here, because every time we come on this program, persons are always asking about 46, 47, 48. We kept saying that community spread was inevitable and it was going to occur at one of the numbers. I don't think that we need to be pointing fingers and stigmatizing and blaming anyone. It was inevitable. We could not stay in this cocoon forever, and we need to stop focusing on 46, 47, 48, or whatever the number is people keep focusing on, and just realize now that we have community spread, but we are containing it, and the figures are coming down. We're going to get through this wave, and in 2 weeks' time, we should be fine.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. That leaves us with you, Mr. Samuel. We have a question here I believe you may be able to answer. The caller asked if hardware stores would be opened if we are expecting bad weather systems.
Thank you, Shaira, and thank you, caller, for that question. And I want to thank everyone who would have called and would have given encouragement not only to the panelists who are part of the National COVID-19 Task Force, but all who are involved in the national response, from the very drain cleaner to the nurses, to the doctors, to the police, security forces, but to everyone involved in the process. To you, we say thank you, and please continue to pray for us. Regarding the question, yes, as a matter of fact, just before we came here, as we finished our meeting about 5, just after 5, a cabinet submission was, as a part of a recommendation, was created, which is before the cabinet secretary at this moment, as a recommendation that if we are going to be impacted, we would like the hardware stores to open for a particular time period during the limited days of operation. This would give our citizens and residents the opportunity to get materials to show up their homes, and also to deal with other little things that may be emerging, such as maybe some persons have called me and said they have plumbing issues, some have indicated they have electrical issues. But the reason why we want to do this is if we are impacted by Invest 97, which is the second wave, that is tropical wave that is coming off the Atlantic, that persons are prepared. The only thing that we are expecting from that particular wave is heavy rainfall. And as a result of that, we want persons to continue to prepare for the hurricane season. You know, inspect your roof, inspect your guttering, your drainage systems, ensure that you have the necessary to protect your electronics, have a plan for your family, have a plan for your business place, so that you could take action. So yes, there is a recommendation before the Cabinet Secretary for action by the Cabinet, and hopefully the Honorable Prime Minister. I was hoping we could have pushed it enough so that Prime Minister could have announced it tonight. However, I'm hopefully Prime Minister can announce it tomorrow if necessary.
All right.
Oh, there was a question there about quarantine and vacation in place. Shaira, there is something called, and to the general public, there is quarantine and there is vacation in place. There is two total different things. Quarantine is whereby you go to this particular facility that has been designated as a quarantine site where you actually have limited or restrictive movements. Therefore, you go into your unit or your room and you are there and you are not able to move. No, we have a tourism product, and the reality is we had to remain competitive in our tourism market. So therefore, We had consultations with the hotels, and based on the protocols, based on the services and products that have been provided by the mother company in larger countries that were actually going through the pandemic themselves. In this regard, we developed robust protocols to be able to provide what we call vacation in place. What does this mean? It simply means that tourists who are desirous of coming to St. Kitts and Nevis will be able to access amenities within the hotel itself. For example, they may be able to go to the pool, they may be able to go to the restaurant and dine, they may be able to access the beach, they may be able to go and access other amenities offered within the hotel setting alone. They do not leave the hotel, but they can leave the room and access the amenities with protocols, meaning wearing the face mask where necessary, means sanitizing, means that they keep the distance where necessary as enforced by the hotels. There is no way we would have remained competitive. As a matter of fact, I can say to you that many persons, many guests who have contacted me in terms of sharing their views and opinions, they have said to us it's easier to go Mexico. They don't have to quarantine, they don't have to vacation in place, they can go to the hotel and actually go anywhere. They prefer to go to other Caribbean islands where they only have to go, and within 24 hours they can move about. That's the true reality. So we had to come with a product. We had to come with something for us to remain relevant in this very highly competitive tourism market. And they were safe. For example, we look at the Four Seasons, strongly robust protocols, and I have to commend the team there. Look at the Park Hyatt, robust protocols. They have had cases. However, they have been contained, and they have done a good job in containing. Look at Royal St. Kitts. They have had cases, they have had situations, and they have been able to contain it, and they're still functioning today. Let's look at the Marriott. Yes, we had a situation, and the St. Kitts Marriott, but they did very well for 6 months. 6 months of the year, and there was an incident which Dr. Wilkinson said was inevitable, and we were preparing for this particular event. We also have the Marriott Vacation Club, very robust protocols. So this is what vacation in place and quarantine. So it's two total different things. Let's go to the OTI. Let's look at the car. They provide quarantine in place, meaning that they don't have amenities to offer a tourist. What they can only offer is for persons to be able to go there, be constrained, be in an area where they can be confined until they go through that particular period of incubation and then tested and then be allowed to reintegrate into society. That was tested, is still strong. We believe in it, and we want you to trust us that we will actually fortify our system. We are going to do an after-action review after we flatten this particular curve, and we are going to learn and be more resilient going forward here in St. Kitts and Nevis regarding our tourism product, regarding citizens, residents returning to the Federation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering those questions, Mr. Abdias Samuel. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind callers again, the lines are open and you can call 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, 1-239-645-4500, and you can send your questions on WhatsApp at 661-5683. If there is a caller, please ask your question.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
I would like to congratulate the task force for doing an awesome job, especially Superintendent of Police, Mr. Kwame Henry. Mr. Prime Minister, you should consider him for the position of Commissioner of Police for his excellent performance. He has proven himself to be better than the rest, and I believe he deserves to be awarded. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And the recommendation.
Thank you so much for your question, caller. Do we have another call?
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Yes, Antigua have two variants, and we have one in St. Kitts. what that means for us here in St. Kitts, and this question, I guess, is for the good doctor. And also, I forget to welcome you, Ms. Flanders, to Leadership Matters, and to Ms. Bryan, wherever you are. We look forward for your return. Also, very quickly, Mr. Samuel, in terms of the partial lockdown, could there be any consideration for doctors and dentists to be open, even for a short period of time? I'll continue to listen. This is Bucky.
Thank you so much for your questions, Bucky, and thank you for welcoming me. Caller, we have another caller.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
My name is Elvis Mills, Dr. Elvis Taxi Service. This question going directly to the Prime Minister, the head of state. For some time now, we've been battling with this corona, roughly 15 months or so. And we should learn from some of the islands like Angola. Grenada had a problem with the hotel business. And there was something happening the ending of May to do with a case that caused a spread, they said. And it's surprising that this thing was growing up from less than 100 to up to 300 or something. Why suddenly Friday evening, the Prime Minister shut the country down from Friday evening and from Sunday afternoon? Notice, when the bank them closed, you get a notice in the night. I want the Prime Minister to answer me. He couldn't answer now, but why people got the debt to their life to live? You got people living hand to mouth because no salary coming in for some time now. You shut the country, and your comments that if you go to the supermarket and you can't get what you want, go fast. But here, God, people fast from the Spirit of God. You can't decide people must fast. People must fast on their own. And I find the Prime Minister very disrespectful to all with the ordinary people in this country. And I'm very annoyed with some of the comments, and I'm going to take him on personally, openly, in the presence of himself, because I find him insult people in a diplomatic way. He must stop it. And I'm very annoyed.
Caller, thank you so much for calling and asking your questions. Please be reminded that we are trying to get as many questions in as possible, so try to keep your questions brief. Do we have any other calls? Okay, we don't have any other calls, so what we will do is we'll take a quick break and then we will get back to you.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up. Yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right. Alright. 'Cause I love you. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Matters, this program hosted by Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. Just before the break, we had quite a number of questions that were asked by a few callers, and so we're going to just jump right into getting those questions answered. We had a caller who spoke directly to the Prime Minister before the break, so Prime Minister Harris, I'll allow you to go first.
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Elvis, my good friend, for calling in. And I will have to speak with him privately. But let us be very clear. Why shut down the country? I asked the question the other way. Why leave it open? We have to shut down the country as every other country has done when we have spikes of an extraordinary nature in relation to the COVID-19 cases. It is clearly a demonstration that the free flow and the free movement of persons would have added to that increase. By locking down the country, we are able to contain the movement. It is a critical tool. It is what is happening now in parts of Africa. It is what has happened everywhere in the world. And so that doesn't need any defense. That is just the reality. That if the virus can only move when persons move, and we are having a spike in the number of COVID cases, then clearly that tool has to be exercised. It has been exercised effectively in the past. It is being exercised now in the present, and should the need be again, it will be exercised fully and firmly. So let us be clear with respect to that. With respect to the question with regard to prayer and fasting, I repeated it tonight, and I shall repeat it very clearly again. At this time of crisis, our country needs more prayer, not less. Our country needs persons to move with greater constancy, praying to God, seeking for His intervention and His help as we deal with a dangerous pandemic. Fasting is one of those critical tools we have. It has both spiritual value and physical value. And clearly at this particular moment in time, as we contemplate what we will do, that is one option. And I encourage it, and I myself apply it. As I said, it's not just one of the admonitions that we learn biblically, but the good doctor will tell you the advantages that fasting does. Indeed, for several medical procedures, they will tell you not to eat anything for a certain period of time. Cleanse your body, cleanse your spirit, and of course it adds to your mind and wellness. Those who want to pursue it, they will pursue it. I can only encourage the citizens and residents as a responsible leader. I recall from the Bible several cases of challenge and the admonition. We must go and pray. We must fast. I remember the good book with Esther, where she was challenged with a monumental decision, risk her life, when she came up with the famous quotation, "If I perish, I perish, but I will go to see the king." The admonition was that her people must pray and fast. It was in that vein that I said what I said, and I make no apology, none whatsoever, for inviting the citizens and residents to do what we must always do, not just by invitation, by our own volition, to pray and fast. So that is where that matter is. The caller before who raised the question with respect to the IDs, the commander of the Defense Force had advised me that he is working with his colleague, the Commissioner of Police, and very shortly those persons without IDs will have them supplied. I'm advised that it is a small number of officers so affected. So that matter is being in hand. Bucky asked the question in relation to the relocation of the vendors. I want to say that this has been an absolute success story. Despite certain imperfections, I am very satisfied. In fact, I've been there since the relocation at several times. On the very first day and the following day, I was there last Saturday again. From all the feedback from the customers in particular, were very, very happy that at long last there was a place where they can come and do their one-stop shopping. Those who have come in now have recognized that they have missed out, and they are happy to be in the public market. Also, we have an environment which is much more controlled. We have an environment where the very COVID-19 protocols that we have been asking for persons to do, and which were not and could not be effectively done on the sidewalks, where most of the people would ply their trade, can now be happening, and they can feel safer. Every person entering the public market, their name is documented. That will be helpful in the event we have to do contact tracing. Every person entering the public market must wear a mask appropriately. Every person entering our public market must go through the process of hand sanitization. So it is the safest place in which to ply the trade. Moreover, having everyone come into the public market now brings a greater equity to all those who have their goods to supply. So I want to commend them. I've seen some very big farmers who are engaged in the actual marketing of their produce in the market. I've seen persons from the 4th Street now properly situated in the public market. So it is really a phenomenal effort. And I want to commend Permanent Secretary Ron Collins, who have taken up this in a very organized and constructive way. I want to thank Senior Officer at the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Ian Chapman, and his team for doing a wonderful job in ensuring compliance, in ensuring that all who request a stall at the market, that has been provided. From all my interaction, it has been a wonderful experience, and some persons are wondering why that event did not happen. It's been many years. In fact, it's for a very long time. Persons have been making the request that what was happening in our streets was not a sustainable endeavor. COVID brought many challenges, but it also brought this wonderful opportunity for us to get the vendors where they are best suited. I would say to the public that no vending will take place on the street of Bastia. We have now found a suitable place. Additionally, we are going to identify, indeed, Mr. Farrier, who heads the team that hitherto had been considering the relocation of vendors. That team is hard at work. They had provided some recommendation for additional marketplaces for persons to do their vending. Those will be pursued, but we will not get back to that state that everyone knew was not a sustainable one. We are also looking, as part of the medium term, to have some attractive spaces around the country so that farmers will not all need to come into Bastia in order to make a living. We are going to have very attractive places for the vending to be done around the country, and of course everything we do will have to be compliant with the COVID-19 protocols.
Thank you, Prime Minister Harris, for answering those questions. We have a few more calls that we're going to take. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello.
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I'm very disappointed in what you did in terms of
Caller, we're having trouble here.
Ending the call for the gentleman who was trying to hear his views and his opinions. But anyway, I must say thank you to EK and his team for doing what the government couldn't do to simply feed people. It's a burning shame. And also the vaccine do not prevent.
That call was disconnected, unfortunately. We'll take another call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, I was contacted before.
Can you ask your questions?
Yes, I wanted to ask this question to the Prime Minister. The last time they were fixing the houses, they went by the government program. I didn't get mine fixed. I filled out a form. I didn't get it fixed. So I'm asking if...
It seems we're having a bit of technical difficulties there. The call was disconnected. Caller, if you can possibly call back, try calling back in again. If there is another call, we'll take another call. Caller, you're on the air. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good night.
Good night.
Your audience, and good night to the Honorable Prime Minister and his team of panel. I would just like to ask a question to the Prime Minister. You indicate to the nation that we are into a state of emergency for 6 months. What is your intake from the 6 months of state of emergency to see what the curve of this virus, what is a man-made plan that we are working from? Because I see that the emphasis that you all are carrying out is the work for the Freemason, and instead of making sure the people them understand what the farmer that are bringing forward from these plans that you all are carrying out is not to safeguard them, but to keep them in subject poverty and in keeping them in the way of totalitarian rulership. And I would like to know that if you are a member of the Freemason, you all have a safe night.
Okay, caller, thank you so much for your question. We'll take one more call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You are on the air.
Okay.
Hi, good night.
Hello, good night.
Hi, good night. You're on the air.
I want to thank the Prime Minister and the CMO for a job well done. Food can buy health. You gotta got health to eat food. And if you lay down in the hospital and you're sick, you can't eat food. So I put health right now over food, and then food could come after. Nobody could hungry in St. Kitts. You got too much a thing, you could go and beg and get food. And I hear me question answer yet when I asked if the young lady is a doctor or nurse from the hotel, because I hear the same 47 and something come back again tonight. So I would like my question to answer, please. Food cannot buy health. Health comes first. You can't let them in the hospital and get sick, and they're going to feed you. They feed you with a tube or something. So, Prime Minister, I thank you for your wonderful job. And Mr. Dr. Martin, oh my God, the only thing may see coming out of your face is blood. I can't deal with it no more. Okay, so I keep on doing the good work. And Mr. Samuel, you said something there. When you go in quarantine, you have a restricted area where the guests can't go. Okay? I were in quarantine, and when they come clean your room, you have to come out the room, okay? And then they go in and they clean. So that's why you want to know if the young lady was a doctor or nurse, or she was helping you in the quarantine case, okay? So you can't point fingers on the government for that. So, okay? So let me get this thing clear up tonight, because they're pointing finger and saying the government has to take full responsibility when the government ain't saying nobody got trouble with nobody. And good night to everybody. Bye.
Good night, and thank you for your questions. I believe that caller was the last caller for this evening. Unfortunately, we can't take all of them because, of course, time is against us. So we're going to just jump into the questions that were asked and see how many we could get answered before we wrap up tonight's program. Before we go to the most recent calls, I'm sorry, I kind of left you out earlier, Mr. Samuel, but you wanted to answer the question about the persons who were getting stopped. Yes, okay, go right ahead.
I was saying that we have to support, and we have listened to the general public calling and speak about the support that we need to give to the security forces. I just want to use my own example. I have my IDs And we talk about this in our task force meeting. The police have a right to do their job. I was stopped, and I keep saying I was stopped 4 times from the time I left the office. I was stopped by one roundabout. By the time I reached the next one, I was stopped again. By the time I reached the next one, I stopped again, and then I was stopped in the middle of the road. The police are simply doing their job. Simply doing their job. None of us are above the law. They are doing their job. They have a right to ask a question. They have a right to ensure that no one abuses the pass or the opportunity they have been given to be on the road. If I am not on the road for work purposes, then they have a right to interrogate me, and they have a right to do what they need to do to ensure that I keep off the road, because the regulation says shelter in place. Essential means that you should only be out if you are going to perform a particular duty. And I am certain our security forces, and the Prime Minister said it right, we are small, we know each other. If you have a challenge, you know where to go to, you know who to contact, you know who to speak to. And we know each other. So I'm encouraging all citizens, I'm encouraging all persons within the national security framework in particular to support the police, and also join with them to ensure that we are vigilant during this time so that persons can comply with the regulation. And you heard one of the callers said it, and I have it here. People are simply not complying. And so the police have more work to do. And they still have to be careful because we are in the context of COVID-19. They have to protect themselves. The rules of engagement are totally different than before. So let's do our best to work together with each other. Thank you, Shaila.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for answering that question. I want to include a few questions that came in on WhatsApp this evening. The first question here is, are the bars going to be able to sell alcohol during the 6-month period, or will it be until after December 31st, 2021? And then there was another question. If persons from Nevis are traveling to St. Kitts to connect for the AA flight, does the water taxi need to apply for police permission, or are they allowed to move these persons freely? We had a complaint actually that came in, and I believe this might be for the police superintendent. Someone complained that there is a particular place in Newtown that is selling rum every day. So that might be something you would have to look into. We have another question. Will the Inland Revenue Department be open on the partial lockdown days? And then the final one here. The doctor mentioned that all of the vaccines will be used and none will be wasted as of tomorrow being the expiration date. What will become of the remaining if there are any? Those are the questions from WhatsApp. Yes, thank you.
Had a total of 41,600 doses, and as of this afternoon, we use 40,615, which means at a minimum we have 985 doses left. That's minimum. I'm sure that there are probably more. And the point is, we are going to use every single dose, and so we have been seeing figures 800, 1,000 persons coming forward every day, and tomorrow those persons who are due their dose, they come forward, and we'll make sure that we use every single drop, because this is a precious commodity that there are places around the globe that haven't started any vaccination program as yet. And so we here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have been very fortunate, and I'm happy that our people responded to the education and vaccination program and came forward. About a month or two ago, there was talk as to whether or not we were not going to use the vaccines. People were talking about vaccine hesitancy, but we see here that our people listen to the facts. they listened to sound reasoning, and they came forward and got vaccinated. And while I'm on the floor, somebody asked about doctors' offices. In the limited operation days on Thursday and Friday, our doctors' offices will be open. And just briefly, somebody asked about the variants, and we say that as long as the virus continues to circulate, you can have the development of variants. Yes, Antigua had experienced 2 variants, the alpha that came from the United Kingdom and the beta that came from South Africa. We here in St. Kitts, we have the lambda variant, which is a variant of interest, and these variants, they have an increased ability to spread, although they're not associated with any more severe disease. However, if you have a variant that has an increased ability to spread, it means that you would have more persons who would become infected. And so although it may not cause more severe disease, if you have more people with mild and moderate disease, then you can also have deleterious outcomes. And so the most important thing is for us to do what we keep preaching that you need to do to protect yourself.
Mr. Samuel, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Just to add to what Dr. Wilkinson would have said, using Antigua as a reference, Antigua would have taken almost over 100 and something, would have taken almost a year and a half to recover from the impact of the virus. And what we are trying to do here with these lockdowns is to restore a state of normalcy to St. Kitts and Nevis in a shorter time period so that we can get our people back to work, so that we could also get the tourism product back at the level or higher than what we had it before the lockdown, and also to ensure that we protect lives, because as the Prime Minister said, that's basically the main priority, to save lives. So if we leave the country open up like this, then we would have seen an overrun of the health system, an overrun on the economy, then we would have seen more people dying, and then we would have had a challenge where persons would not have wanted to come to St. Kitts and Nevis. And hence the reason that the government, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, took the hard decision, the difficult decision, to lock down the country. And that's why we went a methodical process. We went into this having a partial lockdown, and then we went into the hard lockdown. However, let me say, what we are witnessing today is the success of the initial actions taken. So by the next 2 weeks, we could actually say we are going to be at a state whereby we can comfortably open the country in a very safe and methodical way so that we can restore ourselves to where we were before. Thank you, Shayo.
Thank you so much. Yes, Prime Minister, go ahead.
Question about the bars. There is no need for confusion. The 6-month state of emergency has nothing to do with bars. The question of bar closure is the matter dealt with by way of a specific regulation for a period of 14 days. So the bars were operating normally until we entered into the regulation which specifically prohibited the sale of alcohol, particularly by retail. So liquor license was suspended as part of the effort to fight the COVID-19, to ensure that we have appropriate behavior change, to ensure that the temptation of persons while under influence of alcohol to ignore some of these regulations, to, as it were, get in crowded situations at the shops and other places, bars, etc., those things were removed, again, because we are attempting to contain the spread of the virus. When at the end of the 14-day interval, we review again where we are at and where we want to be, a consideration will be made with respect to the issue of bars. So there is no 6 months suspension with respect to the bars. It was a 14-day period which will be reviewed when we get to that particular period in time. Okay? There is no 6 months lockdown. There is no 6 months of anything other than for the 6 months period we have the legislative authority if and when the Governor General is convinced he could declare and proclaim a state of emergency. What happens then will be the subject of regulations. Perhaps Superintendent Comrie could add to that, but one other question I must address. Inland Revenue, yes, will be open during the period of partial lockdown because it is a necessary service, and so it will be functioning with a reduced staff, very, very reduced staff. Indeed, I am advised that several of the transactions as they relate to the Inland Revenue can be conducted online, and persons are therefore advised to use those online facilities. We have determined that there are certain essential services to be provided, and a minimal staff will be available on the advice and the discretion of the head of department, the permanent secretary, or the cabinet secretary to deal with those things that need to be done. Equally, for example, we have determined that the Treasury Department will be open because persons have to be paid and will be paid. We have determined that the Human Resource Department will be opened, again, all scaled down to be able to facilitate transaction as they relate to payroll. So there are certain critical things that must happen. We will not have the full complement of staff, and again, only if it is absolutely necessary for persons to visit those departments should they venture out, because we have the stay-at-home rule. But the government employees form part of the broad essential services domain, and the regulation provide a mechanism by which one will determine who will be available on days of limited operation. Similarly, the public market is open on days of limited operation for that period of time. A very limited staff will be available to manage the process, ensure the protocols are being complied with, and the permanent secretary and his head of departments will determine, of course, who will need to go to provide those essential services.
Thank you, Prime Minister Harris. Superintendent, yes.
Yes, thank you. I think the Prime Minister would have explained the issue of the liquor license being suspended. He's correct. Liquor licenses are not suspended until December 31st. That particular provision is guided by the regulations, and this current regulation will be expired in 14 days. And so unless there's an extension or renewal of the regulation, then your liquor license, your liquor premises, the licensed premises would be allowed to operate again in a short time. I want to address the issue of the water taxi. The question was whether or not the water taxi would require permission from the police to operate. The answer is no. The water taxis, those operations are governed by the various seaport authority, whether NASPA or SCASPA. Who needs permission are the persons who are traveling. The current regulations places restrictions on travel between St. Kitts and Nevis and only provides for travel of essential workers or for essential purposes. Therefore, persons who are using the ferries or the taxis between St. Kitts and Nevis, they would require permission from the Commissioner of Police in order to board these taxis. And I think there are present protocols in place that governs their operations, and persons should not be allowed to use these ferries unless they have written permission from the Commissioner of Police authorizing their travel between the islands.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do you have another one you'd like to answer there? Yes.
I have another one.
Yes. You were mentioning earlier you had another. Okay, that's okay.
I think that was it.
Okay, we've been bombarded with so many questions. That's okay. Okay, Superintendent, we received another, well, it was a complaint, I should say. Is that something that you'll be looking into?
The thing in Nevis, the bar in Newtown?
Yes, I think it will.
We welcome these complaints. We will definitely check it out. If the person could contact me to be more specific. We ask the public all the time to assist us with information, these type of informations where they see illegal operations or things that are happening that are not to happen. We ask that you be our eyes and let us know, and we would address them. We cannot see everything, and so we ask you to assist us in reporting these things when you see them, because they do harm to all of us. If a bar is operating and persons are congregating in the bar, that is an opportunity for the virus to spread, and all of us will be affected. So if you see something like that happening, it is in everybody's best interest that you report it, and we will definitely act upon it.
Thank you so much for answering those questions, and I want to thank all of you for, of course, giving your time as usual here on Leadership Matters. And Prime Minister Harris, if there's anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up, you could feel free to do so. Okay, thank you so much. And before we close off, let me just quickly say, I was hoping that the callers who called in earlier, whose calls dropped, I was hoping that you would be able to get back in, but hopefully you'll get another chance, perhaps next Tuesday or whenever we have Leadership Matters again, to call in and hear your concerns and share your questions with us here on the panel and the members of the listening and the viewing public. Before we wrap up, just a reminder that all health centers will be opened tomorrow, Wednesday, 30th June, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. for those persons who would like to take the vaccine as we continue to battle the novel coronavirus. And with that said, we close off this another edition of Leadership Matters. I have been your host, Shaira Flanders.